Hi, I'm Alicia from the Dizzy Cook, and I thought I would do an update 10 years later with vestibular migraine and triple PD. My first video, my vestibular migraine story, it's been on YouTube for about 5 years now, and you're probably all wondering, like, no one ever updates you on how well they're doing. So I thought I would update you 5 years later after I've had 2 kids, they're 4 and 2, and kind of give you how someone who's living with vestibular migraine, how it changes, if it comes back, if it stays, and all that process as I go through this. So an update, things are going pretty well for me. I still see my neurologist, Dr. Bay, once a year. I've been pretty well controlled, even with 2 pregnancies. My son, I went through IVF with, that was during the pandemic. And I had an increase in attacks right after I had him. I dealt a lot with like postpartum anxiety and depression, which I found out was linked to breastfeeding. So with my second, Lila, who was a huge surprise for us, we didn't think we could get pregnant naturally, and then she came along. So that was pretty crazy. She was, but she's very much like that. She's just kind of a surprise in general. So with her, I had decided not to breastfeed, but then I went in for my scheduled C-section with George. It was an emergency C-section, and I ended up getting a vestibular migraine attack, vertigo actually, as they were wheeling me to the OR. Just the combination of being in labor so long, with the stress, with the lights, they had us wear a mask at the time, which was so silly for women in labor. And so I just started throwing up, and I remember it very vividly. And this was like a totally different experience with the scheduled C-section. I think it was actually amazing for my vestibular migraine to have it be kind of a peaceful moment. The only thing that was the drawback was my daughter ended up in the NICU for like different issues that we didn't foresee. And so it was odd. I felt very disconnected to her. And a lot of the nurses, when I was in the NICU, even though I had told them my story with like vestibular migraine and the depression around breastfeeding last time, they were kind of pushing me to breastfeed since we were disconnected. And so I thought I would compromise by pumping. And that did seem to work a little bit better for me. But when I started to feel like that stress and anxiety coming back, I just knew, okay, I'm not going to do this to myself. Like this is not worth my health. Like my daughter needs a happy mom too. And so I cut it and we switched a formula for her, and it was just such a better experience for me. That being said, I started to get really exhausted. I was like with my son, about like a year later, I started feeling like myself and kind of getting back to myself, back to my old energy level, back to the way I looked again. And then with my daughter, I was just never getting back to that, which I thought I would faster not breastfeeding. And so I was still exhausted all the time. I was having trouble losing the weight that I had gained from her, and I was doing all the things that I had done with George, so I just didn't understand it. And so I went to my primary care doctor who ran blood work. They said everything is normal. I went to my OB. They're like, oh, this is normal, 2 kids under 4, like it makes sense. Or under, I guess it was under 2 at the time, 2 kids around 2. And then no one was really taking me seriously. So I ended up seeing a dietitian because I was just like, maybe it's just because I'm getting older. I'm an older mom. I had my daughter when I was 37. So I started going through this process at 38. And the dietitian had me, wear glucose. We did continuous glucose monitoring. I did ate high protein, high fiber diet for a little while, very Mediterranean, like my Mediterranean diet book. I was one of those patients, she didn't, I'm so like in tune with using diet for migraine that like I was one of those patients that was like really good for her. But what was different was we ran a blood work panel with her, and she reviewed my blood work. And this is something that, like, I'm not sure a lot of dietitians do, but they can. I think they're getting more into it because we're not really getting answers from our conventional doctors. And I had asked her, like, I noticed that my ferritin was a little low. when I started researching optimum levels, and low ferritin can be an indicator for iron deficiency. And I had 2 pregnancies pretty close together, 2 C-sections. And I had also noticed, like, after having my daughter, my periods just changed and they just like got a lot heavier than they had used to be. But what is a heavy period? Like, we don't really know. We all think it's normal until someone tells us it's not. And so I went back to my OB to have her check it, and she said, oh yes, this is absolutely low. And I wish they would have looked at this blood work when I was postpartum instead of just kind of writing it off and having me go down this very expensive path of seeing a dietitian to call it out. Anyway, my OB referred me to a hematologist who I absolutely adore. And she said if a man came in here, so I think my level of ferritin was below 15. I think it was like a 10 or 11. And my hemoglobin was still on the normal but low end at 11. Usually they like to see women like above 12, like 12 to 13 range. And the hemoglobin is kind of what most doctors use to diagnose anemia. But you can have iron deficiency without anemia, and that is at a level, it's different from everyone, which I found is so crazy. But the WHO, the World Health Organization, says that under 15 is iron deficiency no matter what your hemoglobin says. I mean, I'm talking about your hemoglobin, not your hemoglobin A1C. And then the American Hematology Association and other associations, they will usually, a lot of insurance companies, they'll usually draw the line at your ferritin being under 30 as diagnosed as iron deficiency. Now, if you look at your blood work, the blood work is going by the lab range, which will tell you around 15 is normal, and it's not. So I don't know why no one can get on the same page with this, but it's causing a lot of issues with women who are just undiagnosed with iron deficiency. And then the American Gastroenterological Association, they say that a level of 45, under 45 is considered iron deficiency. Now, if you look at some of the papers, some of the research papers, current research that's coming out, they say that under 100 rules out, if your ferritin is over 100, if your ferritin is over 100, that rules out any iron deficiency. So you can have symptoms of iron deficiency, which is dizziness, fatigue, heart palpitations, head pain, all underneath 100 of the level of ferritin. I had no idea about this until I started talking with a hematologist. I had tried with my regular doctor, my PCP. She had recommended just taking iron supplements for a few months. It did nothing really to raise it for me. And what I realized is if you don't address the cause of the low ferritin, which can be a few things, it can be GI issues, it can be absorption issues. So if you have like celiac disease, that can interfere with how you absorb the iron. Periods, heavy periods, a lot of blood loss, postpartum, pregnancy alone can drain you. So I think what had happened was I got super low from having these back-to-back pregnancies and C-sections, and then all of a sudden my hormones were changing as I neared 40 and perimenopause, and it was just like I couldn't overcome it with just supplements and diet. I cook in a cast iron pan. I do all of these things to kind of support my iron levels. I eat grass-fed red meat at least 1 to 2 times a week. Or more often. I am always pairing that with vitamin C rich foods. So I'm doing a lot of things to boost my ferritin naturally, but I just couldn't get there. And so my hematologist had recommended iron infusions. The iron infusions did initially trigger migraine attacks for me. I felt terrible my first 3 actually. And then on my 3rd one, I kind of rounded a corner and I started feeling like myself again. I had so much more energy. People online were even telling me, oh, you like got the coloring in your skin back, which was so crazy to me to hear. I no longer feel like I have to take a nap in the middle of the day with my kids. I can sleep and feel like more rested. And it totally got rid of the symptoms that I was having before my period. So some of like the heart palpitations, the unexplained anxiety attacks, the head pain that I was having before my periods shifted, and I was good for like a year. And then I actually did, so Function Health, which runs these lab panels for you, like if you can't get your doctor to run any of these things, it's about $400, and they will run a full lab panel for you 2 times twice a year. So you get 4 lab panels, and it tells you everything. It's super informative. So they had reached out to me to try it, since I'm sharing so much about like my iron deficiency lately, and what a game changer that was for me too, especially with like migraine management and all those things. And so I found out again that even though I was seeing my hematologist, I see her like every 3 to 4 months to check up on it. I found out that it was low again. So I recently had to do another iron infusion, which I can kind of feel it in my body. Like I can feel myself getting more tired again. I can feel more symptoms around my periods. So that's been kind of interesting to have to keep up with and do. We think my cause is period related. So I'm checking all the boxes of like going to the GI doctor and everything just to make sure it's nothing like that. I had the celiac test. I was negative for that. But I think that because I don't want to be on hormonal birth control because of my migraine attacks, it's like you only have a certain number. You can only have there's only a certain amount of choices to try to help with your periods if it's not like a fibroid related thing or anything like that. So I'm kind of trying to figure out my hormones naturally before diving into HRT. I kind of dabbled in HRT a little bit and it did not go well for me. So I'm actually seeing Dr. Trupti Gokani, and she's having me do a few different like GI tests and blood testing just to kind of see what we can do with like my hormone levels as I get closer to perimenopause. I will say, like, I never experience dizziness anymore like I used to. There's no rocking on the boat. There's no, even my light sensitivity and sound sensitivity is down. I do wear these are my Avalux migraine glasses. I love them. My discount code for them is the Dizzy Cook. I wear them all the time if I'm on the computer, and they really, really help to keep my threshold low. And then as I've gotten older too, I will wear these at night. I like to wear them like from 7 p.m. till I go to bed, and especially because I love to watch like a funny show at the end of the night to kind of like calm myself. It makes me happy. So I started wearing these, and even at night, and I swear that they've helped me sleep better, like no more 3 a.m. wake ups. So between these and doing the iron infusions, like I feel like a brand new person. What I'm still doing for migraine prevention is I take magnesium every day still. So I do a combination of magnesium glycinate, magnesium threonate, and magnesium citrate. I find this is the best combination for me. I like to take threonate in the morning because I feel like it makes me more alert, especially since I still cannot tolerate caffeine. It was one of my biggest migraine triggers, and it's just not worth it for me. Caffeine also interferes with the absorption of iron, so it's just better for me to avoid anyway. So magnesium threonate is kind of like my wake me up. I also found with the Function Health panel that my omega-3s were a little low, which is surprising considering I do recipes for a Mediterranean diet, and I'm having chia pudding every morning, and I'm having salmon like a few times a week, and I'm eating a lot of seafood. So I would say that, you know, you can do all these things sometime in your diet and still need a little extra help. So I started taking an omega-3 supplement too. I'll be interested to see how that affects my blood work, but I think it's also helping with sleep. And I am using the Timolol eye drops and the lorazepam as needed. With not addressing really the root cause of this iron deficiency, and then with changes in my hormones, I notice, like, I'm 39 now, I'm about to be 40 next year. I feel like I'm entering perimenopause. There are just signs like all around my cycle that I can't ignore anymore, but it's very early stages. So I'm just kind of talking with experts like Dr. Gokani, trying to see what I can do naturally, and then see if there's any way to bring in like HRT to kind of help with this, or, you know, if I need to explore things like doing an ablation and stuff like that. So it's a process. Even 10 years later, it's a process. And even though I'm well managed, like I'm so in tune with my body now that I notice when things are going downhill. And one of those things that's really changed for me is my attacks went from being more dizziness based. Like, I never had head pain with my attacks when I first shared my vestibular migraine story. And it was what made it so difficult for me to get diagnosed with migraine in general, because I wasn't having any head pain. And now my attacks have really shifted to include more head pain and less dizziness, or vertigo. Like, I think my childbirth was like the last time I really experienced a vertigo attack. But with the iron deficiency and everything, I started getting more of that head pain. So just be aware, like, if your attacks start changing, there can sometimes be a deeper reason for that. But migraine changes sometimes in general with like the hormone changes that we go through. So I would say that this is just something like you have to manage. I have not had any of that triple PD dizziness since probably having my kids and getting little sleep. Like, I can kind of tell sometimes if the kids are waking up a lot in the middle of the night, like we just went through the time change. I'll kind of get that background dizziness back, but overall, like, I haven't experienced any of that dizziness in a long time. So I think just kind of staying on top of your attacks and really questioning things if they start to come back. Instead of freaking out and being like, oh, these symptoms are back, just staying calm and being like, okay, I have my acute meds. Okay, I've had to take my acute meds more this month. Maybe I need to go back to my doctor and figure out a different plan. I'm kind of seeing where things go as I try to figure out with where my hormones are at, if I want to maybe get back on the daily Timolol eye drops. I'm not quite sure. Dr. Bay had even suggested just doing an antidepressant for the week of my period, since that's when I seem to struggle the most. Vitamin E does seem to help if I take it like the 2 days before and the 3 days after, which is what the clinical research has shown, that vitamin E can help with menstrual migraine too. So this is just kind of my update. Obviously, like, I'm not perfect, but I would definitely call this a success story. I don't live with daily symptoms anymore. I'm fairly well managed. I have a great team of doctors. And I hope my iron deficiency story can kind of help you to at least get this checked. I will put in the comments a link that you can take to your doctor of like a blood work to ask for, or you can go to Function Health and get it run there if you don't have insurance or just want to pay out of pocket for it. A lot of times insurance will cover this for you. If you've already had blood work run by your doctor and you just want to check an iron panel, it's like usually $30 to $40 out of pocket. You can run it yourself at any lab. You can just look online, say iron panel near me or something like that, and a lab will run it for you. So there's many ways that you can get this checked. I find that a lot of primary care doctors don't really know that much about iron deficiency. So if you're not really getting anywhere with your primary care doctor, I would print out some of this research from the American Hematology Society. Just Google iron deficiency without anemia. You'll see studies come up that you can print off and take to them, and a lot of information from like the World Health Organization. Usually doctors will like take that seriously, you know. And then I would say if you're still not getting anywhere with them, just ask for a referral to a hematologist, because once I saw my hematologist, she was like, if I have a man come in at this level, she's like, they're basically not functioning. But women have learned to function with iron deficiency for so long that you kind of get used to it and we don't realize how much it's affecting us and how bad it is. So I also want to clarify, like, I didn't have this problem when I was initially diagnosed with vestibular migraine. So this isn't the cause of my vestibular migraine, like, but I have noticed that if people address this part with the iron deficiency and they have it, it can make a big change for them in their migraine attacks. Ever since I started sharing it, I've just heard multiple stories of people feeling better once they got this addressed, at least with their energy levels. So definitely something to look for. And I will give you guys an update in a few more years.